Hello, it is 5 o'clock on Wednesday. My name is Alex Plaxton, and welcome to #EventIcons. Today we're talking about a very important issue, but we're going to try and have some fun with it. We're going to be casual, but this is an important issue. We have two incredible guests. Today we're talking about the MeToo movement, #MeToo. And it's not just about the events industry. This is about every industry where men and women work together and where those who have roles of authority or perceived power have abused their privileged place. It's not just about sexual advances. It can be about emotional, physical, psychological manipulations from a place of power over one who does not always have the feeling that they can say no or step away from this uncomfortable situation. And this happens to people of both genders, but it's certainly more common for women to experience. And today we'll be looking at the many nuances of this movement and what we can do in the meetings and events industry to support equality and communication about this issue. So we're going to get rolling.
It's Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, so you know what that means. It's time for another episode of #EventIcons, presented by Endless Events, the show where you get to ask the icons of the events industry anything. Use the question panel on the webinar to submit your questions, or you can hop on Twitter. Submit your questions with #EventIcons. We'll be answering your questions live during the entire show. Before we get started, the more people we have watching, the better conversation we can have. So please help share #EventIcons on Twitter and Facebook. Just tell your friends to watch at www.event-icons.com. Now, without any further delay, this is #EventIcons.
All right. Hello, everybody, again. Today's guests are two very good friends of mine, so I'm very excited to have them. This is their debut on Event Icons. First up, we have Sarah Soliman of Soliman Productions. She is a content connoisseur and storyteller serving associations, small businesses with informative and engaging video. So welcome to the show, Sarah.
Thank you, Alex. So happy to be here.
And secondly, we have Courtney Stanley of CS Consulting, from being awarded the MPI Rise Award, the MPI Chairman's Award, and named Collaborate in Connect Magazine's 40 Under 40, to being the youngest member to have ever been elected to MPI's International Board of Directors. Courtney hustles to ignite change in the events industry, most recently focusing on the MeToo movement and its presence in the meetings community. So we're very excited to have Courtney as well.
Me too. Can't wait to get going.
Now, both of these amazing ladies are hot off the tail of presenting an incredible session called Meetings 2 at MPI's World Education Congress in Indianapolis earlier this month. So we thought that it would be a great idea to have them on the show to kind of continue that conversation and talk a bit more about the topic for those who may not have had the opportunity to see them discuss it at MPI. So the first question we're going to ask them is the question that we always ask all of our guests, which is, what got you into the events industry? And if you weren't in the events industry, what would you be doing? So we'll start with Sarah.
Sure. So I think much like many of us in the industry, I sort of fell into it. I didn't really know this industry was a thing until I worked for another production company in the industry and kind of got my feet wet in the meetings and events world, fell in love with it, made some really awesome relationships and friendships, including the ones, with you guys. And I sort of continued within this industry through my business. It was kind of an organic and very natural transition. And I can't imagine myself not being part of the meetings and events space.
But if you weren't?
But if I was not part of it, I'd still for sure be doing production. I mean, that is first and foremost my passion. I went to school for it. I worked in it. I mean, it would be something that is part of my life. I think I would just be working more so with businesses, which I do now anyway, but I think I would still be doing what I'm doing in production.
Great. So we'd still be able to catch you on camera, which is
Absolutely. Which is key. That's right.
And if you're not following Sarah on Instagram, you really should, because her stories are pretty enjoyable.
Thank you.
So Courtney, same question. How did you get into the industry, and what would you be doing if you were not in the industry?
So I actually did intend to go into this industry. So I think that I am in the minority in that, where I was really intrigued by the idea of being behind the scenes of really amazing live events. So I studied it in school, and I have pretty much loved it every day since. But if I hadn't gone into the industry, and actually I did switch my major probably 4 times before I landed on moving into this industry, I am pretty confident that I would be in the medical field. I have always had a passion for the human body and how miraculous it is, so I would definitely be in that field.
Great. Dr. Stanley.
God, sounds so good though. Sounds
really
so
Gotta reach
good.
to it.
No regrets. No regrets.
You should go get your PhD just so we can call you doctor.
I know. It does. It has a nice ring to it.
So let's dive into, what is the MeToo movement for those who may not be familiar with it, or for those who may think it's one thing when it's really another. Can you just kind of share, from your perspective, what is the MeToo movement, and why is it something that we're talking about?
Well, I can start.
So
Yeah, mm-hmm. I knew that the torch was being passed. Yeah, I can start here. So the MeToo movement it's an international movement against sexual harassment and assault, generally speaking. But to give a little bit of background on the most recent social MeToo movement, really, it all started and it all kicked up and started going last October. And it started with a celebrity tweet. And she was retweeting a friend of hers who was saying that she had experienced and was a victim of sexual harassment. And this celebrity retweeted her, asking for all of her friends and followers to also share any experiences that they have had being victims of sexual harassment, and include the hashtag MeToo. And what happened was, across the world, within 24 hours, 4.7 million tweets were sent using that specific hashtag. And that's huge. That's huge. And it really shed light on an issue that really can't be ignored. And it certainly can't be ignored any longer.
Great. Sarah, anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think I like to have Courtney sort of explain this, because for those who don't know, she really sort of disrupted the meetings industry by really bringing the Me Too movement that we've all witnessed and seen in news headlines into this conversation, into the meetings and events industry, because there is a need for it within this industry. So I always like for her to sort of lead the way with that, because she knows so many statistics behind it and has really led the charge on the conversation. So I think she does a great job at explaining exactly what it is.
And there's a lot of social movements right now, especially around the idea of sexual harassment and things like that. I know Time's Up is another hashtag that is being used a lot. So are these all the same movement? Are they different movements?
I think
one we should be focusing on.
I think what's happened with the Me Too movement, it's sort of the introduction into a broader conversation. So I think ultimately hashtag Time's Up, hashtag Me Too, they all sort of come to the same, which is this has to stop and something needs to be done about sexual harassment. Something needs to be done about both men and women taking advantage of their power, their roles, their status to intimidate and corner people into harassment. And I think what's really happened with the use of digital is that it's given a voice to the voiceless. And I think this is why we're seeing sort of branches of the Me Too movement start to trigger, because it's people that are now feeling confident and comfortable to bring their own personal stories to light from their computer screens, because now they're part of this greater community. And I don't think there's one that we should follow more than the other. I think they're all equally just as important, and they all need to be addressed. And ultimately, the end goal is the same: is to, if not stop, just be able to prevent sexual harassment in any workplace, in any situation, whether it's in the meetings and events industry, in Hollywood, in business, really everywhere.
Mm-hmm. And I'll just add on to that just a little tidbit about Time's Up Now. One of the really cool things about Time's Up Now is that it is actually an organization that provides legal funding and legal support or financial support to victims of sexual harassment and assault. And this started specifically in the entertainment industry, where we've seen a lot of movement and action around the MeToo conversation, but it's a little bit different in the sense where they do provide that legal support, which is really cool. So they took a piece of the movement and they made it actionable.
Mm-hmm. I think that's good to know and to understand kind of the differentiation there. And Sarah, you kind of touched on it a bit, but why is it that we're finally talking about this out loud? This is something that has kind of been viewed as you don't talk about this. This is something personal. You maybe talked about it with your close friends or something. It's certainly not something that you would ever want to post out there publicly on social media. Why are we now in a place where this is no longer a taboo, where we can finally talk about these types of things?
I think victims of sexual harassment, I honestly being one of them, you feel like that isn't something that you can just share and display, even sometimes to your closest friends. You sort of hold on to that and you keep it to yourself because you don't want the word to get out there. You don't want to get fired over, making a complaint, filing a complaint over someone that's sexually harassed you. You don't want to lose business. You don't want to lose clients. You don't want to lose friends. I mean, there's so many factors and variables that play into the psyche of sexual harassment victims that you feel like you can't address face-to-face in person. I think what's happened with the MeToo movement, with Time's Up, is, again, it's given a voice to the voiceless. It's to say, you know what? Wow, I am not the only one, and I've always known that I'm not the only one to be a victim of sexual harassment, but now I feel empowered. I feel like people will have my back when I come out with my story and I share what's been done to me, what's happened to me. And just like anything else, once you create a movement, there's many, many voices that come together and stand by each other. And there's nothing more powerful than a group of human beings that stand for something. And I think it just shows you how powerful social media is. And I know, Alex, you obviously, this, being a social media guru yourself, the power behind digital, the power behind social media. And this is a prime example of that happening. I think it's just given people the ability to speak up and to also call to action. I think Time's Up is a great call to action. It's to say, you know what, I'm not just going to sit here and hashtag MeToo. I'm going to hashtag Time's Up because I want something done about this. I want to see a result, an action to the behavior that this person has displayed and continues to display. Mm-hmm. So I just think it's a powerhouse, and I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon.
Great. So I want to talk a little bit about, because this has grown from Hollywood and it's evolved since then, what are the common misconceptions people have about this movement? And as it evolves, where are we at right now with the movement?
I think that some people believe that this is a phase. And I unfortunately have heard quite a few people make comments like, oh, another woman just trying to get her 15 minutes of fame. And, when is this phase going to end? When is it going to be over? When are we going to be on to the next thing that people are talking about? It's just a trend. It's just a fad. And I think the biggest issue is that people don't see this as truth, that this is real, this is happening. It's not new. This has been happening for a really long time, and it's not going away, but it's also not something that can be changed overnight. This is something that is going to be a movement that requires an entire shift socially. So not just in the US, but worldwide, and it's going to be, timing's going to be different depending on cultural circumstances. But this is something that it's not a phase, it's a work in progress, and it's going to take a social and mental shift to be able to chip away little by little, year after year, generation after generation, to actually make real social change.
Mm-hmm. And I think another misconception is that this movement is a bashing towards men, and it's not. This is not women coming out and hating men. This is an issue that happens on both sides for both genders. And I was really pleased to see, Courtney and I were both very pleased to see during our session at WEC that men were in the audience, and we thanked them for being there, because although it does affect women, majority women, it's a conversation that we as human beings need to have with one another so we can all come to a common ground and find a solution. So when a man sees a woman being harassed, whether it's in the workplace or out, they know what to do, how to approach that situation, and to even notice it as being a problem. And vice versa. When women see other women harassing a man, I mean, it's the same thing. So I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions. And I talked about this during our session. It upsets me that men have almost become fearful from this movement. Men that, I've known for years are sort of hesitant to give me a hug now because they don't know how I'm going to react, because they have the MeToo movement in the back of their head. And although I respect and admire that they think far enough ahead that they think that this is a powerful movement and they want to respect it, I also think there's a fine line with how we change our behaviors based on the movement. I mean, it's all about intent and not so much about, not everyone that gives you a hug is sexually harassing you. I mean, that's right. Really, so I think a common misconception is I don't want this to be just a women-centered conversation. I think men need to be part of it. And for you, Alex, thank you for even having this conversation with two women, because this is exactly a perfect example of how we can all come to common ground and keep the movement going, but more importantly, find solutions around it.
And the other thing is, I just want to jump in quickly here because something you said triggered this, but the other thing is that women cannot fight this alone. This is going to take all people, however people choose to identify. This is going to take everybody. So it's not something where, women are going into this saying, this is our fight. This is our chance to make a difference because we're going to stand strong. We're going to stick together. And this is us, sister by sister, working on this fight together. And that is great. And there's a lot of great energy, behind that. But the truth of the matter is we need everybody to be a part of this, because if it's just women who are saying, well, we as most times victims of sexual harassment are trying to change the outcome, but we're not necessarily looking to that perpetrator and having this massive support system behind us from all angles, men, women, however people identify, standing together saying, as the majority, this is not okay. This is not a fight from women for women. This is a fight for human rights. And we believe that they need to be treated differently and with respect.
And, one thing you said, Sarah, which really kind of triggered something, is for me it's very interesting, because I think the way that we've been brought up, and even since being little kids, is this notion that and it starts, I think, sometimes with the family, where if someone in the family wants to give a little kid a hug or a kiss, it's like, go kiss grandma. Like, you don't have a choice, you have to go do it, even if it makes you uncomfortable. And I have a niece and a nephew. And one thing that my sister is doing is like giving them a choice. Like, she's not telling them they have to do it. It's like, would you like to do it? And they get a choice, yes or no. And so I think the fact, what Courtney said is this isn't something we can change overnight because it's ingrained in our human behavior. And so with the hugging thing, I think it's a way of changing human behavior. Now when I get approached by really anyone, what I'm seeing more and more, which I kind of like, is if I get introduced to someone or I have a great conversation with someone and we're saying goodbye, someone says, "I'm a hugger. Are you a hugger?" And then, if we're both mutually huggers, then we'll hug. If not, we'll shake hands. So I think it's just a recognizing of human behavior and also personal space and respecting everyone's personal space.
For sure. And especially in the events industry. Well, one, I love that your sister's doing that. That's really cool and a really cool way to raise your kids. And two, I think being in this space, we have people from all over the world that are part of the meetings and events industry. When we go to events like a WEC, there's folks from Europe, Asia, Africa. I mean, really people from everywhere. And there's a lot of cultural differences. And it's about being able to recognize that not everyone is raised like you, built like you, has the same behaviors as you do, and communicating that, which I think is what you're saying, is communicating, Hey, you know what? I'm a hugger. Great to meet you, but I'm a hugger, bring it in, and if I get that same vibe from you, then sure, then we've established a clear line of comfortability where it's not, neither party is feeling uncomfortable. And I think that's where it starts. We all just have to be way more aware of our personal behaviors and how they make the other person on the receiving end feel.
But here's the thing too. We're talking about sexual harassment. We're talking about sexual assault. So yes, there are these boundaries of, that include cultural differences in how you should greet someone, especially in a professional setting, whether it's an office or a conference or a meeting. Yes, there are certain behaviors that we should amend to make sure that we're always being outwardly respectful of the people that we're meeting. But this conversation is about sexual assault and sexual harassment. So this is the difference between here's the thing. The MeToo movement and sexual harassment or inappropriate behavior or sexual assault is part of a spectrum. So at one end, maybe you have the highest forms of sexual assault and inhumanity. And at the other hand, you have maybe, let's just say, a hug or a handshake or something like that. And there's a lot of shades of gray that fall in between on the spectrum. So what's oftentimes very confusing and cause for a lot of controversy is how are we able to define what is inappropriate and what is not? And a lot of it comes back to what Sarah brought up earlier, and that is intent. And I don't want to lean on intuition too hard, but if you, as let's say the recipient of some sort of physical contact or comment, if you feel like something is not right and your gut is telling you that something's not right, something probably isn't right. But is it all the way at this end of the spectrum? Does it fall in the middle, or is it all the way on the other end? There are so many different ways to approach whether or not you feel like you have been taken advantage of, or whether you're just uncomfortable. There are absolutely differences, but at the end of the day, Me Too is about harassment and assault. So it's not about hugging someone. This is about touching someone inappropriately or making sexual comments to someone inappropriately. So my 2 cents.
Right.
Which is where, and sorry, I know we keep going back and forth. This is what happens when Courtney and I are together, but I think
that's true.
Yeah. And I think this is where, it's upsetting to me what I was saying earlier about, it's upsetting to me when people that I've known for years and years in the industry are hesitant to now give me a hug, because that's not what this is about. And I think part of your question about misconception is that too. It's okay, let's really look at this and not be so extreme about it. This is not because you're going to give me a hug that I'm going to go file a complaint that you've harassed me. But we have to come to, again, a common ground. I keep using those terms because there has to be a balance. And although I think, some people, and this sounds terrible, but I think some people may take advantage of this movement and the true pure meaning behind it, because it's happened, we cannot lose sight of the balance and the fact that this shouldn't necessarily change your daily behaviors. If your intent is good, your intent is good. And people are going to recognize that. And there's no way that you'll get in trouble for having good intent. So I want to make that clear, because it is a huge misconception. And that's really where I think a lot of my frustration lies, is if you're a good person and your intent is good, don't change that about yourself. Don't not give your friend a hug.
Right. So I want to go back a little bit and just talk about a little bit about, what spurred you to get involved in the Me Too movement. Why have you two kind of stepped up to be the ones to talk about it, especially within the meetings industry?
I can start. So I have actually been speaking about sexual harassment in the events industry for probably 3 to 4 years now. So this isn't something that is new for me, but what I will say was a bit of a game changer was last fall, actually before the Me Too movement really took off. I had written an article for an industry publication, and I was tired of talking about sexual harassment like it was taboo, like a taboo topic where people, maybe it was hush hush, people didn't want to talk about it. I really wanted to bring it to the forefront through writing and give specific examples of stories that I have been told by people who have experienced harassment in many forms and fashions within the industry. So there was that change of the way that I had conversations, and really not wanting to shy away from it, and also just speaking the truth, calling people out, saying, guess what, guys, this does happen. And I'm pretty sick of it. The people that have also experienced harassment are also fed up with it. And it's time that we actually have a conversation. And what really fuels my passion for this topic is the fact that I have so much personal experience, specifically within our industry. I have been a victim of sexual harassment on countless accounts by many different types of people in many different situations, but a lot of that has taken place within our own community. And hearing from friends that I care about and from colleagues that I care about and people that I volunteer with, hearing from them and understanding that their stories are so similar to mine, to the point where maybe we've even been harassed by the same person or touched inappropriately by the same person within the industry, that is really what poured gasoline on my fire. Because a lot of times we have difficulties standing up and speaking up for ourselves. We own that fear that Sarah was talking about earlier. We're afraid of the consequences. We're afraid of potential repercussions. We're afraid that we're going to be judged or chastised for speaking up. We're not believed at all. But when you hear other people that you truly love and care about, that fear disappears. And you, in that moment, want to fight for those people, including yourself. So for me, I think, and what will keep me going is the fact that I know that this is real. It's happened to me. It's happened to my community. And I know that we are good people that can make change and we can help push this movement along so that we do have a better community and that we are respected.
And I think for me, to be honest, Courtney really inspired me through her column that she wrote, that she mentioned. That really helped me realize that, and I've known this, I'm an intelligent person, but it put the spotlight on the Me Too movement in our industry. And it made me feel like, okay, this is not normal behavior that I've also experienced in our community and continue to experience. So I have gone through this myself, and I had recently gone through something that was pretty fresh, and it just kind of it ignited my own fire, and interviewed Courtney actually for an MPI TV segment about sexual harassment. And we just had a really great conversation off record when the cameras weren't rolling. And it was just so human and so real. And it just inspired me to want to be able to be a go-to person in the industry for other women should they have similar experiences. So to be able to say, oh, that Courtney girl or that Sarah girl, they talk about this stuff. Maybe I should reach out to them. And having an avenue for other women or men to go to and have sort of a safe haven to discuss some of the things that they may be going through, that to me, there's nothing more fulfilling than that in life, is to be able to help other people. And what good does it do, right? To sort of keep your troubles to yourself when people in your community are also experiencing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to talk about something that's very topical that has just recently occurred, to kind of bring this back to the meetings industry and how this can really impact your meetings. Quite recently, in the last, I think, 2 weeks, Chris Hardwick has been accused of some wrongdoing, some harassment of an ex-girlfriend. And she wrote a whole blog post about it, and it blew up. It went viral. She never even mentioned him by name, but people put the things together. And Chris Hardwick is a huge person on the stage at San Diego Comic-Con, which is happening next month. And since that happened, he has been removed from all panels. He typically leads, 3 or 4 panels as the moderator. He's usually a guest at different events and parties and things like that. And he's been, removed from all those. He's been uninvited. So no event is immune from this. Like if this can happen to San Diego Comic-Con, this can happen to your event too. It can happen with your keynote speaker. It can happen with the CEO of your organization. It can happen to many, many people. How can you be prepared? One thing that San Diego Comic-Con is being criticized right now about is that they have not come forward and issued any statements. Typically, the organizations like AMC and other organizations that would have him be the moderator for their panels have come forward and said that he's been removed, but San Diego Comic-Con has not said any statement. So as an event organizer, how can we be prepared to handle something like this?
So I think, my question to you, which you've already answered, was going to be, how has Comic-Con handled this? And here's the unfortunate part. You can communicate, and I think they did the right thing by removing him from the panels. However, they should communicate, and this goes for any organization that's watching this. You should always communicate and be transparent with your action steps and what you're doing behind the scenes to ensure that, 1, these allegations are true, and 2, how you put out a clear line of a mission statement, what Comic-Con stands for. We absolutely do not tolerate any form of sexual harassment, sexual misconduct, so on and so forth. Stand for something. So now your audience really understands that this is where you draw the line. This is a red light. But in addition to that, if you don't communicate what action steps you take, once a claim is made on one of your speakers, one of your attendees, and it's in the public light already, that's dangerous, because what are you hiding, right? And it shows that not only is it a little shady, and I'm sure it's not, right? They probably feel like they've already handled it and done what they've needed to do by removing him, but you have to have a follow-up conversation. And you owe that to your attendees, you owe that to your members, to make sure that they're in constant know of how you're handling this. If it's in the news, his name is out there, you're not relaying any private information of who the victim is and who the person being accused is, who the accuser is. You have to be sure to come up with a clear plan of communication, which is something that we addressed during our session as well. And if you don't do that, that's where you get into very dangerous waters with your member base and with your attendees.
I'll add on to that as well. One of the biggest industry associations in our community put out a survey after the MeToo movement kicked off last fall. And I believe it was 100 meeting professionals that responded to this survey, 80% of those 100 people said that yes, they have experienced sexual harassment in a professional setting. So as a meeting or an event organizer, it's pretty safe to say that someone is going to be sexually harassed at your event. And the priority of any meeting planner or organizer should be and is for your attendee to enjoy themselves, for them to feel safe. At a bare minimum, your people should feel safe. So knowing that, even though, sure, it may be a small group of people that were pooled, it's happening. It's happening at every event, at every conference, whether it's in the finance industry or the medical industry or the entertainment industry. It's real and it's happening. And I think what Sarah and I talked a lot about in our session at WEC is that there are preventative measures that event organizers can take to really own their responsibility of making sure that every single person feels safe at that event, whether it is including legal language in the registration process about the type of behavior that is acceptable and is not acceptable at the event. That way, if an incident does occur and it's reported, at least you have some sort of written leverage to ask that person to leave or to take action. Or, maybe it is having additional security that are specifically watching out for uncomfortable or inappropriate behavior at your networking events where you know that there is going to be free flowing alcohol. The events are going to run late into the night and people start to get a little bit sloppy and cross some lines. So I think what is really critical and one of our biggest takeaways from our session that we held was make sure that you put a plan in place, a contingency plan, like anything else, as if you would have some risk assessment put in place and a plan of action so that if something happens on site, your staff is trained, they know what to do. You have a point person that is well equipped to handle any incidents that may happen and that you communicate. So you make sure that you are openly following up with people who are involved in the situation.
And I think something else to add to that, and I think where a lot of the challenge comes into play for events is it's a big pool of people and you don't know who to go to should you have been in an uncomfortable situation, right? If you don't know who the event organizer is, you don't know who your go-to person would be, that's a problem. Mm-hmm. What we recommended during our session, which is just one example, there's many ways to work around this challenge, but maybe add it into your mobile app. Have a tab that says for any concerns or, questions, or should you be made to feel uncomfortable at any point during this meeting, please submit your name information to this secure, and now okay, I had an incident last night at the opening reception. I feel very uncomfortable about it and I need to tell someone. Who do I tell? Well, go to my mobile app. I know exactly where to direct my concern to. And then once that happens, to Courtney's point about having a point contact and someone, everyone being on the same page from a team, someone should be responsible to communicate right away with that individual and address their concerns. And again, as I mentioned earlier, make sure to have a clear plan of communication to what the next steps are. We are so sorry you felt this way. Here's what we're going to do. Within 48 hours, we are going to work with our attorney, because you should have an attorney that you can call on should these situations happen at your event or outside of your event, amongst your members in general. And we are going to get back with you within 48 hours as to where we are with this review, investigation, whatever you want to call it. And we'll take it from there. So now you've made that person feel like they matter, the victim feel like you care as an organization, and that person will be a lifer. They will renew their membership. They will speak praise to you and your organization, because why wouldn't they? You've given them no reason to walk away feeling like, I never want to go back here because I feel unsafe. So I think having that is important. I want to also touch on something, because I think we put so much emphasis on events. What if something happens at my event? But when you're a member of an organization, that is a year-round thing. Mm-hmm. I have been harassed through social media, through text messages, through, outside of events when an event isn't happening, but through members of similar organizations. So I still feel like it's my responsibility to report that person to the organization, even though it's not on their watch, it's not during an event. I think that's still an important factor, because sexual harassment is not just inappropriately touching. It can come through digital as well. And that's where organizations, I think, have to really start thinking about a plan of contingency plan, because it's not only at your events that you should be concerned about. It's a year-round solution that you need to be able to implement quickly and efficiently at any given point that a claim comes in.
Great. So I do want to call out that we have some people watching on Facebook. Hello, Facebook. So we've got a few comments, a few questions, some we've already addressed. Kyle Hillman said this is such an important conversation for the meetings industry. And I think he was referring to, the hugging. On the flip side, if you follow the rule of would you do this for both professional sexes, and the answer is no, you have to ask why, which I think is extremely relevant and important.
Yeah, here, Kyle.
And then Sam Allen said, being a global huggability winner, this is definitely not about the hug. It's highlighting the serious nature of sexual harassment in our industry. A commitment to protect our staff and resource on our watch is needed. Starting this conversation without fear of the consequences is critical. And he gives you 2 props. Bravo, Courtney and Sarah, for promoting this within our industry.
Thank you. Thank you for watching and being part of the conversation.
Yes,
yeah,
and miss you.
So, there's we've got about 20 minutes left, and I do want to talk a bit more about, the events industry and as organizations, what we can do. So for organizations, what are steps that are being recommended from an HR perspective to mitigate Me Too?
You want to take this one, Sarah?
Yeah, so I think that, and we're not HR experts, so I can't speak to what HR is recommending, but what I will say is Courtney and I actually spoke with an attorney prior to our session at WEC to sort of get a better outline into, what should people do. And I think the first step is doing your research, talking to your colleagues, seeing what other associations, organizations are doing around this issue. Then hiring an attorney that can put a clear mission statement together. And actually, I want to commend MPI for doing this, because they're a pure example of that. They've put out a statement, bold and clear, that this is a stance that, that it's a no tolerance policy for sexual harassment. So all of their members are made aware that this is a no-go when you're a member of MPI. So I think that's probably the first step, is doing some research and getting some legal help and putting together a clear outline and mission statement to where your industry or where your organization stands. Along with that, I think it's also having an internal meeting with your team to ensure that internally, this is also the same stance that you're taking, and what everyone's role is in ensuring that your members never feel like they don't have anywhere to go to report sexual harassment claims, amongst other things, any kind of claim, really, not just sexual harassment.
The other thing that I will applaud MPI for is they have started to do multiple trainings. So yes, they did an internal training on sexual harassment, but they, in addition to that, they also did a training for chapter leaders at this past WEC. And that was a first. That was a first for them. This is something that needs to be done annually. It needs to be at the forefront of any sort of training, especially for new leadership. And I think it's a good start. I think it's a really good start.
And I think also making sure that the same way you would opt into agreeing that when you attend this meeting or this event that photos and videos will be taken of you, and that it's up to the organization how they want to use your likeness, and you opt into that when you register. Making sure that that language around sexual harassment is also incorporated into not only something that people can see on social media, but that they actually opt into. So when you go to register for an event online, you opt into these are the things that you are agreeing to as an individual when you attend our event. So then should a claim happen, you have backing, not just not just, through words, but an actual opt-in of that person. They've agreed to abide by your rules and they've chosen not to. So here are the consequences now.
Mm-hmm. So Sam Allen said on Facebook, more often than not, the harassment isn't from a stranger. It's someone the victim knows, and often someone perceived as a powerful person within that environment or association. So how do you encourage delegates, members, to respond and act in that type of situation?
Well, the first thing I would say is it's not your fault. So if something does happen, and I 100% agree from personal experience that it is quite often or almost always somebody that the victim knows and is, in meetings with or whatever it may be. And the person often feels like they can get away with it. And it is interesting, actually, to me that, to Sam's point, that it typically is, the victim typically is someone, or at least from, a lot of friends that I have had share their stories, it is someone who is very confident and successful. And it's a little mind-boggling because you would think that the perpetrator would specifically avoid people that have a voice. But for some reason, that's not the case. And I can tell you from personal experience that being somebody who isn't afraid to speak up, and I would consider myself to be a successful professional. I have been the victim of sexual harassment many, many times, and more often than not, I haven't spoken up. So what I would say, and this is the advice that I give to myself and I give to my friends or people that I've met for the first time, is it's not right. It's not your fault. Speak up, because it is happening to someone else. And I think that is that final piece of advice is really what helps people use their voice, because it is true. If it's happening to you, it has happened to somebody else, and it is going to happen to another person unless that person is held accountable and they're called out and repercussions happen.
And I think I love that point that you made, Courtney, about the fact that it's usually confident people that fall victim to sexual harassment. It's so true. And I think the reason behind that, just psychologically, is because the perpetrator knows that you, as a successful young business person, have a lot to lose. And you won't say anything because, because you know too many people. You have too much going for you. Why would you say something about this? It could ruin your whole career. I mean, I think that's sort of, and I could be wrong, but I think that's sort of the mentality to a perpetrator, is that you're not, yes, you have a voice in a lot of ways, but this is one way that you won't say anything. And I don't know. I think I feel the same way. I mean, I've fallen victim to sexual harassment many a times, both in this industry and outside of this industry. And I often wonder, I get so disappointed with myself because I wonder why I've never spoken up, why I still don't necessarily speak up the way that I should when it comes to me being victimized. And I go through this and I wonder, is it because that I'm afraid of the fact that people may not believe me? Is it because I'm afraid of losing clients over being too vocal? Do I think that people will think I'm too dramatic and not want to work with me in the future? So you kind of justify all of these ridiculous reasons as to not speak up. And it's just that, it's ridiculous. So definitely speak up. I mean, that's always our advice, is speak up or find someone who you trust that you can go and open up to. I think having a mentor is important, having someone that you can always rely on. And I use the word safe haven because I think that's important for all of us to have, whether that person is in the industry or not, to go and talk to about falling victim to sexual harassment and get their advice. And, always speak up. Always, always, always speak up, because if it's happening to you, it's most certainly happening to other people by that same person.
And I think that whole perspective is very interesting, with the confidence and the strong-willed people. And I think a lot of it also goes back to that taboo of if you are being sexually harassed, or if this happens to you, that you're almost considered weak, or that you invited this upon yourself. And I think they know that, you know, for strong-willed people, to admit that this has happened to them, like, they're not going to admit that they're weak, you know? So I think they know that that confidence is fragile. So I think that that might be another part of it as well.
Great point.
I love that you said that people may think that they brought it on themselves. That is so real. That is so real. There have been so many times where especially women will second guess, well, maybe I was too much this, or maybe the outfit I wore, or whatever it may be. And it's ridiculous, but it's real. That happens all the time. I've thought that so many times when people make advances that are definitely inappropriate, especially in professional settings. And I'm like, I wonder if I spoke up, I feel like maybe because of what I was wearing, they would be like, yeah, but like, come on, look at what she was wearing. And it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd.
It is.
Wearing some kind of something does not invite somebody else to put their hands on my body.
Amen, sister.
Amen. So we are wrapping up the hour. I'm going to ask one more question, and then we'll get to our last final questions. But I think this is something that I'd like to touch on. I think it's important, because it's something that I think a lot of people are trying to do and considering doing is, you know, when we plan meetings and events, what can we do to create these safe zones? And I know that's a big question, and it certainly has many facets to look at. I know we've addressed some of it, like the clause when you register, you know, agreeing to certain things. But is there something that we can do, some actual tactics and things that we can take to make sure that our events are more of a safe zone?
I think, you know, back to making sure that your communication efforts are outlined pre-event. So making sure that your attendees understand that there will be a safety button part of your app that they can go to should there be a situation that makes them uncomfortable on site. I think that's a great place to start, making sure that they know that this is a secure platform, it's confidential, anything that they report will not be held against them, you know, their name won't be submitted anywhere. I mean, I think being able to communicate that pre-show is super important, because then you go into an event knowing, okay, if I do run into any danger zone, I know that I can go and report this, you know, at my fingertips. And I think also making sure that you're addressing this as part of the conversation in your opening general session on stage is key. Just like we address, you know, safety nowadays, like emergencies at events, I think this needs to be sort of part of that conversation so people know that this is the game plan should there be something to report.
I think we have covered quite a few of the tactics in the conversation, but I think what's really critical is that meeting and event organizers own their responsibility to make sure that it is a safe environment for every single person who attends the event. And I think it's really fantastic when organizers or when speakers or MCs put it at the forefront of the event. So like Sarah was saying, you know, here are the exits. This is how you can escape the room in case of an emergency or a fire. Oh, and by the way, if something happens, if there's an advance that's inappropriate, this is how you report that. So I think it's just owning it. It's owning it at the forefront, knowing and understanding that it is very likely that people at your event are being sexually harassed. Just own it. It's happening. So do something about it, plan for it, train your team. And I think that it's going to not only enhance your attendee experience, but it's going to provide your organization or your brand a lot more respect, because they see that you get it. You're being honest, you're doing something about it. And even though maybe every incident can't be resolved, or maybe everything can or shouldn't be investigated necessarily, you're still owning it.
And when you don't own it or when you don't address it, I mean, remember, these are organizations that are providing education. I mean, that's really why we're all there. We're not there to drink and party, right? We're there to be educated, to become better people, within our careers and personal development and all of that. So when you don't own a clear challenge that is happening in society within your own meeting or event, you are damaging your organization's credibility, because I look to you for education. I look to you for my professional and personal development. So I also look to you to ensure that my safety is priority. And that's the worst thing that you can do is damage your credibility. So definitely own it, and make sure you own it year round, not just for your event.
And people do go to conferences to have a good time. People go to drink and to network and to reunite with their community. And I think that's great. I don't think anything about that needs to change. But I also think that I should be able, and anybody should be able, to have a drink without being groped.
I think that is a great place to end that. Yeah. Absolutely. Roseanne Collymore on Facebook said, by speaking up and speaking out, we help those after us.
Yes, yes.
Really, really important. It's not even just all about you. It's about everyone that this could be happening to again, and putting a stop to that.
Preach.
So let's go to our final questions that we ask all our guests. If you could only pick one and one tip only, what is your one tip for event planners?
You want me to start?
Sure.
Okay. I'm happy to start.
Yeah.
Event planners have a really unique role, in the sense where they have incredible power to create an amazing experience for people all over the world in so many different kinds of industries, and to really create something magical for people that they will remember for the rest of their lives. So I want that to be at the forefront when meeting planners and event planners are considering the type of experience that they want to provide, and really own that power that they have to create something absolutely amazing. And if you see something, say something, raise the bar, and hold people accountable, and plan an amazing event for people to remember.
Great.
Yeah, I love that. And I think to sort of add on to that is use your platform. You've got the eyes and ears of a captive audience when you are hosting an event, and be sure that you're using that moment or those moments to create positive change, positive behavior, and really drive home positive messages that your attendees can use both professionally and personally.
Great. And last but certainly not least, do you have any new or cool resources you want to share? These could be websites, blogs, books, gadgets, anything that you really think that people should be using or looking at or reading.
Go ahead, Sarah.
I don't have any super cool gadget, or I'm pretty boring in my normal day-to-day life.
Not true.
Unless you watch my Instagram stories, then I'm not so boring. But I think for me, the most resourceful thing you can do is join a chapter. And I know that sounds so nerdy of me, but that to me is my resource. When you join a chapter from whatever organization that you're a part of, I think the people that you surround yourself with, your environment, are your biggest resource out there. So that to me would be my thing to leave you with.
Mine is going to be completely off the cuff and random, but it's something that I love. And I'm sure a handful of you have heard about it before, but I love 23andMe. I don't know if anyone here has heard about it, but it is so cool. It's basically like a genetics, ancestry, DNA report where you can not only track where your ancestors came from, but it will also tell you a lot of really weird behavioral traits or physical traits or diseases you may be prone to based on your genetic makeup. And I thought I was like 80% German for the longest time. And it turns out that is not true at all. I also found out. So I'm mostly British, which kind of makes sense. I get it. But I'm also 1% Native American, which is interesting too.
Cool.
Yeah, but I just found it really interesting. I learned a lot about myself, and I just think it's fun. They give you a lot of different reports all the time with, how you're sleeping or what your hair does when it rains. It's very interesting and weird, and I love it.
That's awesome. So one final comment from Facebook. We have a question. Is your WEC session available to watch online? Was it?
No, we are so upset. However, we do plan on doing this session again, and we can keep you up to date as to where and when that will take place. So if we can have that person, I can't see who's asking that, but if we can keep in touch with that individual, we'd be happy to share when we'll be speaking on this again. And having a video company, I should have recorded it, but my team was running around like crazy and I didn't want to add something else to their agenda. So we did not record it, unfortunately.
And
Great.
I will add on to that, better yet, if you are looking for speakers and you're interested in this topic or in anything else we touched on today, feel free to let us know. Sarah and I recently became a serious dynamic duo, and we have a lot of fun on stage, and we're here to make your event awesome. So that's an option too.
And the good news is that here at #EventIcons, we are recorded live each Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern.
There you go.
So you can go back and watch this episode anytime you want. You can also watch behind the scenes on Facebook Live, where we go live a little bit earlier. And then this is also released the following Tuesday on iTunes, Pocket Cast, Stitcher, or whatever your favorite podcast app is. And of course, event-icons.com. You can follow along with the show notes. You'll see links to resources that are shared. But the best way to join us live is to sign up at event-icons.com. Join the chat live here on Zoom. And we want to know what you think. So go on Twitter, go on social media, use the hashtag EventIcons, or join the EventIcons Facebook group. And also let us know what icons you want to be on the show. So thank you again for joining us today. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Courtney. This has been
it's our pleasure.
Eye-opening.
Thank you.
Very, very fascinating. So we're super excited. And that's it for today.
Thank you for joining us for another amazing episode of #EventIcons. To catch the transcription and all of the resources mentioned, head to www.helloendless.com/blog. This week's episode will be posted and available by next Tuesday. Also, let us know what you thought about this week's episode. Share your biggest takeaway and join the social conversation. Sponsored by Little Bird Told Media. Just tag your post with #EventIcons. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you again for joining us. We'll see you next Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on #EventIcons.